Everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. And today we're going to bring you an advanced review of DC Collectibles' new Designer Series Greg Capullo Batman action figure. Now this figure isn't slated to hit comic and specialty shelves until the end of the month, but we're going to bring you an early look at it thanks to the folks at DC Collectibles. Now, as I mentioned, this is the first figure in their new designer series of 7-inch figures, and the figure is based on the artwork of Greg Capullo from the Batman comics. The figure comes packaged in what is a little different than we typically see with 7-inch figures from DC Collectibles. We still have the window box packaging. However, the window now extends all the way to the right side, so you can only see the figure from the front, but you can also see it from the side. Also, it's basically just white packaging with some gray border highlights around it, and then the drawing. So it's not as colorful as we typically see with DC Collectible packaging. Then down below we have the name of being the designer series, and that's based on Greg Capullo's Batman. And we see the number 1 since this is the first figure in this new line. And then up at the top we have a really big warning for choking hazard. Then on the other side of the packaging we have a drawing, a Greg Capullo drawing of Batman, and then again the name of the line and the figure and everything. Finally, on the back we get a look at the other figures in the first wave of this series. So we have Batman, Talon, Nightwing, and the Riddler. And then down in the bottom right corner it tells us that this figure was sculpted by Jonathan Matthews. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Now, as I mentioned before, this new designer series of figures is based on a specific artist's work from the comic books. And in this particular case, it's based on Greg Capullo's work on the Batman comics. And I think DC Collectibles has done a great job with this figure in capturing that look and feel of Greg's work. Now this figure is based on the New 52 costume as seen in the Batman comics, and you'll see, unlike previous New 52 figures, you've got a little bit more blockiness on the arm muscles, on the shoulders there, kind of giving it that look and feel of Capullo's work. I also really like what they've done with the face sculpt on this figure. The line work on the mask, giving it that brooding look that you typically see with Batman. I think they've just done an awesome job nailing that look with this head sculpt. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen figures based on a specific artist's work from DC Collectibles / DC Direct. I remember a few years ago they did a line of figures based on Ed McGuinness's work from the Batman Superman comics. So it isn't the first time we've seen something like this. Now, what really sets this figure apart, even if you're not a fan of Greg Capullo's work or not really even familiar with it, is just the added articulation that they've given this figure. And we'll go into more details about that in just a moment. But this really is probably one of the best figures I think DC Collectibles has done for Batman to date. So the paint apps with this figure, we've got basically a flat type light gray on the costume. It's not metallic like we've seen with some of the previous DC Collectible New 52 Batman figures. It is a flat gray. And then we have a more shiny black used for the bat symbol, the gloves, and the boots. And then for the bat utility belt, we've got yellow, but we've got some nice wash work done there to really kind of make it stand out, and it looks really good. And then the pouches are sculpted on the belt. Besides the face sculpt, one of the other things I really like with this figure is how they've sculpted the cape on it. It's not too big, it doesn't hang down too low, it's really kind of the perfect size, and I really like how they've sculpted it so it's kind of flowing outwards, so it really allows you to get it in some good, the figure in some good poses, whether he's just standing there or kind of in a jumping flight pose. The way the cape is sculpted is just, I think, looks really good and doesn't prohibit the figure's movement in any way. It's made with that same kind of soft vinyl rubbery material that we've seen with previous figures. It's got a nice weight to it, so it hangs nice, but it doesn't restrict the movement of the figure in any way. The figure has one hand that's sculpted closed-fisted, so it can't hold anything in its right hand, and then the other hand is sculpted. It's somewhat closed, but there are some openings between his fingers. So, you know, when you're looking at it, it looks like it's basically closed-fisted, but when you look up close at it, you can see that it does have a little bit of openings. Which is nice because the figure does come with some accessories. It comes with 3 batarangs, and they're very tiny. I really like the way the batarangs look on this figure. They're very kind of sculpted with a sharp blade for the wings look. So you can kind of stick these batarangs in between his fingers. And so it's kind of like what you've seen him do in the comics, where it's kind of like using it as almost like a claw between his fingers. So I really like how they've done that, and you can get all 3 in there if you want to. So now one thing I will caution is, again, these batarangs are very tiny, so you know you can drop them easily, and you know basically they're easy to lose because they are so tiny. Okay, so scale wise, this figure stands at just about 6 3/4 inches tall, just under 7 inches basically. He stands about the same height as the previously released New 52 figure from DC Collectibles. So scale wise, he's pretty good. And then here he is, just for another comparison, here he is next to the Arkham Batman figure. And that one's a little bit taller with the larger ears, but for the most part they're about the same size. And then here he is next to New 52 versions of Superman and Wonder Woman. Okay, so articulation on this figure is really good. Like we've seen with a lot of the more recently released figures from DC Collectibles, they've done a really good job of amping up their articulation on this figure. Now, we have seen previous Batman figures from DC Collectibles with decent articulation with their Arkham video game line, but this is really the first comic book accurate figure that we've seen from them that gives us a lot of nice articulation. So that's one of the reasons why I really like this figure, because it's you know, basically a comic book accurate version with good articulation. And even if you're not a fan of Capullo's artwork, I still think that this is a figure that will interest you if you're a Batman fan because of the added articulation. Now the head is on a ball joint. He's got good movement. He can look left and right, and he can also look up and down. I don't see a hinge on the neck, but he does have really good up and down movement with the head. So I really like that, and he can kind of pivot to the left and the right. The arms are attached at the shoulder with ball hinge joints, so he's got good movement. He can get his arms all the way out. He's got good rotation. The cape doesn't prohibit his arm movements at all. He's got the bicep swivel. He's got a single hinged elbow, but he can still bend the elbow pretty good. Then he's got a swivel at the bottom of the glove, and then he's also got a swivel at the wrist. So he's got 2 swivels there, and then he has a hinge at the wrists so he can do his hands down and up nicely. So this really allows you to give him in some cool poses, holding his batarangs and throwing poses and stuff. So I really like what they've done with that. He's got the ab crunch joint, so you can bend down nicely. And then he's got the swivel at the waist. Now the legs are attached with those clear plastic ball joints there. You really can't do the splits very well, but you know, that's about as much as you can get the figures outward. But he does have good movement forward, and he's got good movement back. He's got the thigh swivel. He's got double jointed knees, so you can bend the knees really nice. And then he's got a swivel at the top of the boot. And then he's got a swivel at the ankle as well. And he has hinges at the ankle. Not really a pivot, but he does have the up and down movement at the foot. And then he's got one peg hole on his foot. And you can also see they've done a really nice job of sculpting treads on the bottom of the boots as well. So that's my review. I think this is definitely one of the best Batman figures that DC Collectibles has released to date. I have not had any quality control issues with the joints. And the movement on the figure is really nice. It really allows you, with the added articulation, allows you to get them in some really nice poses. So, as I mentioned before, even if you're not a huge fan or familiar with Greg Capullo's artwork, just the added articulation just makes this such a better Batman figure than like the previously released New 52 Batman figure that they did. I really hope we see other like Justice League characters like Superman and Wonder Woman get this updated treatment with the articulation. So this figure will be released by the end of this month. I believe May 30th is the release date, but definitely it should be out by the end of May. So start checking your comic book and specialty shops at the end of the month for this one. I think also Talon, the Talon figure, which is the second figure in this designer series line, will also be released at that point. And then Nightwing and the Riddler will be released, I think, next month. So that's my review. I hope you enjoy it. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And until next time, I'll check you later.